When I first caught up with the main ReZero novels, I remember reading this theory and being blown away by how well-structured and comprehensive it was. Later, when I caught up on the side stories, I expected to find holes in it. To my surprise, though, the theory held up remarkably well. I'm confident this will surprise you too, even if you're a novel reader. However, if you're an anime-only viewer, you might want to come back after Season 4 ends, as this theory covers a lot of what happens secretly behind the scenes. That said, if you don't mind spoilers, feel free to stick around. While it's best to be caught up through Season 4, you'll honestly understand most of it if you've watched everything released so far, provided your memory is fresh. After all, the theory I'm about to share brings together all the little mysteries the series has left breadcrumbed so far and pieces them together with lore fragments from Arc 6. To be clear, this isn't my theory. I honestly wish I had been the one to spot all the intricate connections I'm about to show you. I generally don't watch much ReZero content on YouTube because, having read all the available literature, it's hard to find anything that surprises me in a sea of summaries. So that should give you an idea of just how much this theory impacted me. That nearly 4 years after first finding it, I still consider it a solid theory. Even though I didn't create it, I've taken the liberty of fleshing out certain points that time has proven true. Since I'm aware that my obvious fondness for this theory might cloud my judgment, I also ran it by an acquaintance who I know has deep knowledge of the lore. I'll be pointing out parts I think are incorrect myself, but to ensure I'm not being biased, I decided to get a second opinion. I should also let you know that this is the first of 3 videos where we'll be breaking down a massive Arc 6 theory, or rather, a Season 4 theory, in great detail. I'll be uploading a new video every 2 days covering the full theory in parts. Alright, let's get started. Welcome to the biggest ReZero Season 4 theory. This first part details the existence of a hidden character who was present during the events of Arc 6 but went completely unnoticed by the fandom because of how well they were camouflaged. The most interesting part? This mysterious character might be none other than Flugel himself, and I'll explain why in these next 6 points. This part of the video explains how it's possible that, on the night Subaru lost his memories, the entity that spoke to Meili used a Sin authority on her. I know those of you watching this already know what Arc 6 is about, and this video isn't a summary. However, you need to remember this specific scene. It's the night before Subaru wakes up with his memories gone. It's later revealed that he went to the library on this very night and something happened. Obviously, we know that's where he entered Reed's book and lost his memories, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We know that during his visit to the library, another member of the faction went there at the same time, Meili. But unlike Subaru, who only visited once, she went twice. Her first visit coincided with Subaru's arrival. It's revealed that she was looking for Elsa's book, and when she saw our protagonist, she worried he might doubt her loyalty for seeking out her old enemy's book. So she panicked and left. However, it's made clear that she did speak to Subaru, and the Subaru she spoke to was still the usual Subaru. You know, the idiot we all know. The novel even emphasizes this with the first dialogue they share that night, which I'll show you next. That way of speaking is unmistakable. It's exactly how our protagonist talks. Even so, Meili left immediately. However, on her way back to her room, she decided to try searching for Elsa's book one more time. So a short while later, she heads back to the library, hoping to find the book without tipping off Subaru. And this is where things get weird. Subaru speaks to her again, but he's no longer the usual Subaru. He's not the Subaru we know. If you've read the arc, you'll probably tell me that the reason for the protagonist's shift in attitude is that, by this point, Rui Arneb had already possessed Subaru. But here's where I think the trap lies. The way this entity speaks is strange, even for supposedly being Luis. On top of that, the person inhabiting Subaru's body says things like, "I will make sure to remember your worries and anguish," all while kissing Meili's hair. It's stated that, in that instant, Meili felt a pain in her chest, and the narration cuts off there. But the author of this theory postulates that the reason for Meili's chest pain is that right then and there, the unknown entity inside Subaru's body consumed the worries and anguish it had just mentioned. Honestly, this whole scene is really weird, but it looks a lot like a Sin Archbishop using their authority. Just like gluttony activates their authority by touching their target, perhaps this supposed authority requires similar contact to work. In this case, that contact happened through the protagonist's action toward Meili. Leaving the strangeness of the scene aside, Meili describes feeling dread and a sudden pain in her chest. The next day, depending on amnesiac Subaru's actions, She attempts to either confront him or kill him. And all of this seems to be a direct result of the authority that apparently stripped away the worries holding her back that night. Besides, it's a bit odd that Meili would try to kill Subaru now. I mean, if she wanted to do it, she could have done it in the desert using one of her witch beasts. Why kill Subaru now that she's inside the tower and can't use her divine protection? In fact, she even comments on this peculiarity herself when looking back on the event.
だって本当に私がお兄さんたちを殺そうとするならこんな塔の中より砂丘の方が簡単にできたはずじゃない？ああ、お兄さんは覚えてないんだからわからないかもしれないけど。
As we can see, something forced Meili, a veteran assassin, to choose a terrible moment to finish off Subaru. I believe Meili's irregular behavior here is due to an authority. But which specific authority? That's what we're going to cover next. This part of the video speculates that the mysterious entity's authority is actually the authority of gluttony, and I'm about to explain why. The authority supposedly used by possessed Subaru is strikingly similar to the authority of gluttony when it eats a person's memories. Both authorities, the mysterious entities and the gluttony siblings, require physical contact with the target to take effect. Obviously, this unknown authority doesn't work exactly the same way the archbishops of gluttony use it. While the original authority consumes all of a victim's memories, this variant only consumes specific memories and emotions. It also doesn't seem to require the victim's name to be spoken to activate. But let's move on. This point speculates that the person possessing Subaru isn't Louis, but the great sage himself, Flugel. Throughout Arc 6, there are only two interactions between possessed Subaru and Meili. The first one is what I mentioned earlier, where the entity kisses Meili's hair. The second one happens in Amnesiac Subaru's fourth loop, precisely in the loop where Subaru kills Meili by strangling her. Amnesiac Subaru discovers this because he reads her Book of the Dead. When he witnesses the moment of the girl's death, he observes the following. He sees how the entity, right before killing her, reprimands her for breaking the tower's rules and tells her to act more aggressively next time. Now, how could there be a next time for someone who's already dead? That makes zero sense. At least that's what Meili thought before she died. But things change if this message was actually meant for someone who can redo things, someone who can try again, someone like Subaru. Following this, Amnesiac Subaru wakes up with no memory of what happened, but with the phrase Natsuki Subaru was here written in Japanese. In retrospect, we know that at this point in the story, it was Rui who left a part of herself inside him. Her goal was to force Amnesiac Subaru to create an identity distinct from the original Subaru, so that once that happened, Rui could devour him. Furthermore, if we stick to the belief that Rui was behind all this, it's logical to assume she used the Japanese knowledge she gained from Subaru to write the message Natsuki Subaru was here. But there are a couple of problems with that assumption. The issue is that the Subaru who terrifies and murders Meili acts and speaks differently from the Archbishop of Gluttony we know. Aside from her verbal tics, her most defining trait is that she refers to herself as we. This is a characteristic she and her brother share when they speak. However, the mysterious entity possessing Subaru at this moment doesn't use we. Instead, he simply uses I. To help you understand this better, I'm going to show you the dialogue where both characters speak. I need you to pay very close attention to how they express themselves, as understanding this point is vital for the rest of the theory.
Desire in the depths of her heart. Why did hearing him point that out weigh on her so awfully heavily?
That is how possessed Subaru speaks, using the pronoun I. Now I'll show you how a Sin Archbishop of Gluttony typically talks. Remember, this Archbishop uses the pronoun we.
Horizontally shaking her head in refusal, Louis embraced her own petite body in Subaru's line of sight. With no signs of the smile fading away from those lips, her refusal was merely an appearance as well. It was a young girl with her true feelings beyond perception. No, perhaps it should be said they were vague, with no point to grip on.
人一倍繊細で傷つきやすい心の持ち主なんだからさ。
Now, some might argue that this discrepancy can be explained away, that Louis was just trying to imitate the original Subaru to confuse amnesiac Subaru. But I think we can all agree, she does a terrible job at it. Plus, the fact that this mysterious entity uses a version of the authority of gluttony that's different from the one we know, well, that just gives us more reason to believe it's not Louis, but someone else entirely. I speculate that the entity behind all this might be Flugel. Why? First, the phrase Natsuki Subaru was here was already used by him in the past. We saw it carved on the tree back in Season 1. Second, it's incredibly weird for possessed Subaru to tell Meili, asking that is against the rules. If it were Louis impersonating Subaru, why would she, a Sin Archbishop, care if Meili breaks the tower's rules? Also, whenever Flugel comes up, he's referred to as the Sage from long ago. Subaru has been considered a sage candidate ever since he absorbed Betelgeuse's witch factor, and it's believed that only after absorbing all of them will he become a complete sage. If Subaru, as a sage candidate, already possesses an authority, it's not far-fetched to believe that Flugel, being the superior version, has at least one authority of his own. The original theory wraps up this section by suggesting that, as weird as it sounds, Flugel has plenty of reasons to support Louis at this point in the story. Why? Because he is testing Subaru. How is he testing him? Simple. He's forcing Subaru to undergo the true trial of the tower. And believe it or not, there is evidence that there was someone else in the tower. Someone who wasn't Subaru, Shaula, Amelia, or anyone else from the group that went to the Pleiades watchtower. While it's never explicitly stated who this extra person was, it is believed to be Flugel. I'll explain why the theory's author believes this as we continue with the video. This point explains why it is believed that Flugel is sealed inside Lagna, and how he can orchestrate everything from the inside. Prior to Arc 6, we didn't have much information about Lagna. We had bits and pieces here and there, but nothing substantial. However, this arc drops some crucial information. The first major speculation comes from Rui Arneb, who says something interesting when talking about Lagna.
But Rui also despised being directed. That was the same as Lagna, an existence for whom that perpetually was the usual state of things.
This implies that Lagna, the system responsible for maintaining the stability of the Re-Zero world, and the very source that grants divine protections to Reinhard, is apparently being controlled. Later, during one of the fandom's most anticipated scenes in Arc 6, both Subarus discuss and theorize about who exactly might be the person controlling and dominating this system.
あいつは記憶の回廊に居座ってるだけで、あそこの支配者ってわけじゃない。あそこの支配者は、多分もっと性格悪いやつだろうと思う。この状況から考えると、性格悪いやつってのはわかる。最有力なのは、
Halting words there for once Subaru and Subaru collectively stated.
賢者フリューゲル。
As we can see, both of them believe that the one running this system is none other than the sage, Flugel. Obviously, this is all just speculation on the protagonist's part, but it's speculation worth taking seriously. We also know that both the tower and the books of the dead share a connection with Lagna. We can deduce this connection because when a person dies, their soul goes to Lagna, where their names and memories are processed and then placed in the tower in the form of a book of the dead. So, if it's not Louis running this system, is it possible that our other suspect Flugel is watching over the entire tower from some inaccessible area? Remember, in the tower, we met major figures like the Divine Dragon and the First Sword Saint. We were supposed to meet the Sage too, but instead, we got his Temu knockoff, Shaula. But what if it's later revealed that Flugel really was watching everything? Just as Echidna's soul could see everything happening in the sanctuary from her grave, what if Flugel has been watching all this from some inaccessible or barely accessible location in the area? Two inaccessible places come to mind. First, the novel mentions that in a certain part of the tower, there was a spot that required 7 things to access. The novel never clarifies exactly what is needed, but at that moment, Subaru had 4 of the 7 required items. This strange number mysteriously lines up with the authority Subaru held at the time. His own authority, returned by death. The authority of sloth, from Betelgeuse. The authority of greed, from Regulus. And since he had a gluttony archbishop inside his body at that moment, that likely counted towards the total 2. That's how he met 4 of the 7 requested requirements. If he had completed all 7 authorities, would he have been able to meet Flugel? Who knows? The other inaccessible place proposed by this theory is that the sage's soul might be sealed inside Lagna itself. If both Subarus believe he is the one directing the system, it's not far-fetched to think that the administrator of this place, called the Hall of Memories, could be hiding somewhere within that zone. Obviously, we know he is human and couldn't be alive after 400 years. However, we learned from the witches that humans can continue to exist if they separate a piece of their soul. And while I mentioned earlier that the authority he might possess is gluttony, a witch factor that we've already seen move to a new host in the present timeline, Season 2 actually showed us that, despite a change in users, a former holder of an authority can still retain the power. But let's move on to the next mystery on this list. This part of the video speculates on how this symbol, which Tepe uses to represent the void left by the power of gluttony in its victims, actually holds deeper meanings than it seems. If you've read Arc 6, it probably won't come as a surprise to know that this symbol is used to represent the people devoured by gluttony within the minds of those who remember them. When Ram looks back on her past and remembers her sister, she's represented by this square.
Cladding her small body in wind, Ram bolted through the village as if a gale. What those lips announced referred to her one and only, whom she loved even within the slightest thought.
Curiously, these squares also appeared in chapters 33 and 72, which, if you're wondering, are the chapters where Subaru loses his memories and subsequently regains them. The author pulled a cool move by using these symbols, derived from gluttony's power, as the titles themselves. As we can see from the examples I gave you, it's safe to say that if we eventually spot these symbols in the narration, it means the person in question has been affected by gluttony but isn't aware of it. But what would you say if I told you that Rui Arneb herself, one of the Sin Archbishops of Gluttony, also has these symbols when she speaks? How is it that the Archbishop of Gluttony herself is affected by something she's supposed to control? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to explain now. This part of the video argues that many of Rui's actions were the result of someone manipulating her, and that someone was the great sage Flugel. As I mentioned earlier, these symbols appear to represent the absence of a forgotten person in the memories of others. However, they also appear in the Archbishop's own dialogue segments, which suggests that she is also under the influence of an authority. In the chapter named after her, Chapter 75, we see these squares appear when her life is briefly discussed.
Without realizing such emotions of Rui, her elder brothers, who successively resumed eating for fulfilling their own desires, she also felt irritated at.
Unlike the alteration we see in Ram, where only things related to Rem are censored, in Rui's case, the words being altered and censored by these symbols are heart and mind. This difference in the method of alteration implies the possibility that Rui is being affected by a different authority than the one affecting Ram. This becomes even clearer when we consider that the Archbishop spent her entire life in Lagna, and the only person who, according to this theory, could have been there is Flugel. Was he the one who controlled and influenced the little girl's actions? But exactly how does this authority affect Rui? Here comes the tricky part, so I'm going to ask you to pay very close attention to what happens next. The moment Subaru meets Rui and she places her clone inside him is mentioned and narrated twice in the novel. However, the two times we see this scene, we see it from two different points of view. The first point of view is given from Rui's perspective. While she was placing her clone inside Subaru, she hears the following. As we can see, she only hears Subaru say something, but she doesn't catch the whole thing because the rest of the phrase is instantly censored by something. Later on, when Subaru regains control of his body, the author narrates this moment again, but this time from Subaru's point of view. And surprise! When the story describes what he saw, the censorship that Rui experienced is nowhere to be found. As we can see, there was a difference in what they both heard. For some reason, Rui only heard part of it, and whatever came after was censored by someone or something. The author of this theory argues that this irregularity Rui experienced is identical to the manipulation the mysterious entity used on Meili. Since this entity removed Meili's worries when they met at the start of the arc, it triggered her attempt to kill Subaru the very next day. And here, the tower is doing the exact same thing to Rui. It blocked her from hearing Subaru's warnings, specifically when he warned her that experiencing his authority is no easy process. The mysterious entity censored the protagonist's words to force the girl into believing that everything would go according to her plans. As we can see, this censorship is a constant that exclusively affects Rui. However, even when this archbishop possesses the protagonist, this censorship continues to affect her at times, as we are about to see.
Just how many times would he have to get deceived? How many times would he have to get his hope trampled underfoot? How many times would he have to get his vanquished until he learnt?
As we can see, the symbol keeps appearing even when she's inside Subaru's body. That's because even though she's possessing the protagonist, the authority manipulating her is bound to her, regardless of the vessel she uses. But it doesn't end there. When amnesiac Subaru and original Subaru reunite, they start talking and catching up on everything that happened since the memory loss. But remember, technically, this amnesiac Subaru still has Rui's clone inside him. And because of that, right in the middle of the conversation between the two versions of the protagonist, the following happens.
まあそうだな。多分そうだな。ガセなんだってガセあれなんか変。いや多分聞き間違いだと思う。
These symbols only show up in amnesiac Subaru's dialogue, and they stop appearing the moment Rui's clone leaves his body following the merger of both versions of the protagonist. Because these squares never reappear after Rui is expelled from Subaru, it's easy to believe that Flugel's authority wasn't active on Subaru himself, but rather attached to the Rui clone hiding inside him. The theory's author highly doubts that this censorship is just Tappei hiding information from us. Instead, he believes something is genuinely affecting amnesiac Subaru in real time. But let's move on. As you can see, these first 6 points suggest there was indeed another presence in the tower. Next, in the following 8 points, we'll discuss why it was necessary for Subaru to lose his memories and how the so-called trials in that place were actually fake, but we'll cover that in 2 days. However, if you don't want to wait, you can always support the channel by becoming a member to watch the full video right now. Remember, when I release the full version, I'll also drop a document covering which parts of this theory have already been confirmed or debunked. So stay tuned for that. But tell me, what did you think of part 1 of this series?